All right, is this on? Yes, okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. This is a meeting of the City of Helena Zoning Commission. And I want to reflect for the record that we do have a quorum present with 4 members of the Zoning Commission. We will go ahead and get started. For those not familiar, the Zoning Commission is a 5-member board. We must have 3 members present to have a quorum. Our meeting follows a standard agenda, which you'll see up on the screen. We will run. Is this not on?
So you should be able to hear. Everyone's on a mic up here and it's broadcasting. It's broadcasting through, so maybe.
I will talk closer to the mic. It's not a problem at all. I just can't see you when I get. I'll try to do both. Please let me know if you again can't hear me. I do think this isn't very loud for whatever reason.
Let me see if I can't adjust the level.
Okay, thank you. So we will follow a standard agenda tonight. You can see that up on the board or on the screen, sorry. And as we go through, we'll walk through. Okay, thank you. That got louder. Got a thumbs up as well, so that's always good. Let's see, sorry, lost my place tonight. So, okay, we'll start with approval of the minutes, and we do have our minutes from last month's meeting.
We actually have the minutes from May.
Right.
Okay. The minutes for last month's meeting weren't ready when the agenda went out.
Okay.
It just became available last night, so we'll just go ahead and approve those at the next meeting if that's okay.
That works perfectly. And we have the minutes from May because we did not vote on those at our last meeting. That's correct. So are there any amendments or edits, suggestions about the May 14th minutes? Not seeing any. The minutes from May are approved. Thanks, April. All right, we'll move on down the agenda with our regular items. We do have 2 items up for public hearing tonight. And for the as we go through these agenda items, we will start with a staff presentation on each. We'll then invite commissioners to speak, ask questions of staff if they need to. Then the applicant or the applicant's representative will be invited to approach the podium and speak if they would like to. This is not necessary or required, but they are welcome to if they'd like to add anything for the record. We will then open a public portion of the meeting and we'll invite public comment on each agenda item as we go through one at a time. So I understand these 2 items are connected, similar, so we'll invite public comment on each item as we go. We'll then close the public comment portion of the hearing, allow for final comments, questions from the commission, and then we'll ask for a motion and we'll have a vote. As some of you know, if you don't know, this commission is an advisory board to the city commission. So we make recommendations tonight and they will be heard before the city commission at a scheduled date in the future. We do not make final decisions on any of these items that we're hearing tonight. With that, we'll invite Michael up for our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Harbridge and zoning commissioners. Can you guys hear me? Because I feel low as well. I was getting a little feedback from testing, so. All right. One more time, test. There we go. As introduced, I am Michael Alvarez. I'm a planner with the City of Helena Community Development Department. The first item tonight is a zone change from R2 to R3 for 102 South Cook Street. There is, as explained in the introduction, an associated land use case with this application for a conditional use permit. If the zoning commission votes for denial of this zone change, you will still need to vote for denial on the CUP on the basis that it would not be permitted in the R2 zoning district. So it will force your hand on that. So you will be considering an ordinance specifically amending City of Helena Ordinance number 3097 in the official zoning map for the City of Helena that changes the zoning district from R2 residential to R3 residential, for the property legally described as lots 18 to 20 in block 29 of the Corbin subdivision to the city of Helena, Lewis and Clark County, Montana. This property is generally located on the southwest side of the intersection of East Broadway Street and South Cook Street. The current zoning designation being R2 residential. Here is a snippet of the plat. The subject property's block is in the bottom left-hand corner labeled 29 there. You might not recognize this from an aerial because it has changed pretty substantially. However, not specifically the subject property. So this plat is still in existence for that property. Even if adjacent to it, there's a new road section there and all of the capital. So the applicant is seeking a zone change to R3. R3 zoning is not out of alignment with the zoning of the area. The area is predominantly zoned residential, and R3 is a residential zone type, and the adjacent property is zoned R3. R3 zoning will allow for limited commercial activity on this site with the associated conditional use permit approval. Interestingly, the northern half of block 29 there is designated public on the future land use map. The growth policy designates public areas as land that is in government or quasi-government use. The public and that public designation is for land that is in government or quasi-government use. The R2 residential district, just for everybody's edification, is a district that provides for residential dwellings and limited non-residential development that protects and enhances the residential nature of the area. Whereas the R3 residential district provides for the development of a mixture of residential structures to serve varied housing needs and allows limited compatible non-residential uses. Montana Code Annotated guides the adoption of zoning regulations, specifically 76-2304, 1 and 2 on your screen here. These criteria guided the creation of the staff reports you've been provided with, and I will touch on most of these items in further detail in this presentation. Since this area is designated as public, staff assessment is that the current zoning is a poor fit to the designation, and the proposed zoning is a less poor fit. A quarter-acre R2 residential lot would be expected to generate 9.52 trips per day in its current configurations with a resident single dwelling unit use, or twice that with 2 units. With the 2 units, it is allowed by right in the R2 zoning district. And a roughly quarter-acre lot zoned R3 could reasonably, although in its current configuration would still generate 9.52 trips per day, but could have a high-end build-out of 6 residences in a multiple dwelling unit configuration that would be estimated to generate roughly twice as many trips per day. I will get into traffic generation numbers for the proposed CUP when we are talking about the proposed CUP. The subject property is currently served by City of Helena Emergency Services and Utilities. Please find department comments on your screen. Generally, no comments or comments reserved for the CUP. And for the city attorney's office, we do have a member of that office on the line tonight. Growth policy objectives applicable to this project are Goal 1 and Goal 10 and Objectives 77, 82, and 99. These are further described in your staff reports. Generally, they are descriptive of economic vitality and how to apply zoning regulations and create development patterns that promote the efficient use of the city. The proposed zone change to R3 will increase consistency with adjacent properties and increase development opportunities unique to the area. It is planning staff's opinion that consistency is produced by matching the zoning of the properties north of the alley. Whereas the rest of the alley properties there are all currently R3. This is an outlier. The proposed zoning is not expected to create unique impacts to the surrounding properties because this zone type already exists adjacent to the subject property and affords for similar uses found in the vicinity. The zoning commission meeting was legally noticed in the Helena Independent Record on June 29th. Neighbor notices were sent to property owners within 150 feet on July 1st. Notice sign was placed on Cook Street to the southwest of the intersection of East Broadway Street and South Cook Street on June 24th. As of today, July 9th, 3 comments in opposition have been received. City staff recommend a vote for approval of a recommendation of an ordinance amending City of Helena Ordinance number 3097 in the official zoning map for the City of Helena that changes the zoning district from R2 residential to R3 residential for the property legally described as lots 18 through 20 in block 29 of the Corbin subdivision to the City of Helena, Lewis and Clark County, Montana. I'll happily take your questions or back away to any slides. Some of these slides were a little bit information dense versus what I didn't just want to read slides tonight. So if you want me to move back to any of them, I'm happy to.
Thank you. Oh, no, really loud. Thanks, Michael. Are there any questions for staff?
Could you show me again the map with the different lots? I thought I had an understanding of what was R3 and what was not, and now I'm a bit confused. Could you go around this parcel and help educate me here? Yeah, this picture.
Sure. So the house immediately to the west there and adjacent to that, so the homes to the west there, and that's a 4-plex. And then if you were to follow East Broadway up, there's an office building on the corner of East Broadway in North Montana. That's all designated R3, whereas south of the alley there, that green stripe, that's all R2. And the subject property is currently R2.
And
And everything across South Cook Street is all R2 as well.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions for staff?
Are there other areas in the vicinity that are R3 on East Broadway? I guess in the area of public lands where the Capitol is, then it's East Broadway. South of East Broadway, is there other R3 along the street?
Thank you, Chair Harbridge and Commissioners. No, there generally isn't any R3 over there, except for this pocket. If you were to head down North Montana and like west of North Montana, you get into some R3. But this predominantly in this area, it's R2.
Any further questions for staff? Okay, thanks, Michael. At this point, we would invite the applicant or applicant's representative to please come up and speak if you would like to. And please state your name for the record.
Thank you. For the record, my name is Callie Wicks. That's KALIWICKS. I am here tonight on behalf of John Iverson. He sends his regrets. He is at his parents' 50th wedding anniversary this evening and is available via text should you have any questions that I cannot answer. I just wanted, is this working? Sorry. Okay.
There was some feedback, so we
Okay.
want to avoid that.
Okay, thank you very much. I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you to the city and staff who have put in time on this project, and thank them for answering all of our questions. And also just wanted to say that, prior to the hearing, heard a little bit of chatter and just wanted to allay some folks' fear about the type of business that is intended. Again, it is intended for offices. I believe it would be 3 offices, professional folks. I would be one of them. I have a small child who may join me there. I think it'll be a little bit of a difference in terms of, whether we park right at the Capitol or right on Broadway or just right up the street. I did also want to point out that there is a lobbying office in the Realtors building, just a few doors down, right near the property. So that was part of our thinking in terms of this being a good fit for the neighborhood. Again, I'm available for questions if anyone should have any. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wicks. Are there any questions for the applicant? All right, seeing none, we will open the public portion of the hearing. So if you would like to speak on this proposal, and again, this is the zone change proposal, please come forward and for the record state your name and if you are representing anybody other than yourself.
My name is Jim Benish. I live at 1302 Highland, which is on Highland and Cook. To begin with, because my back door is on Cook, my wife and I spent lots of time with other residents getting Cook Street a residential street. I don't think the people that bought that house understand that you have to have a permit through the city to park there. So I could see people coming for service, parking there. I could see guests parking there. And I've been ticketed for not having a decal on my windshield, but it sounds like it's okay to open that up again and make it a real pain in the neck to find a parking spot when there's a meeting, like a lobby meeting. I'm not happy with the fact that we have to be compared with the Broadway unit that was brought up. Has nothing to do with us. It shouldn't be something that makes it sound like, oh, we should be open to that. That's not the point. This sounds like the city is well in line to do something about this. As a former school psychologist, I would like to see kids living there, not lobbyists living there. As you know from the news, homes are more expensive nowadays. So we're taking away a home that somebody could afford. And nowadays a home like 500, 600,000, it goes beyond that. So we're getting rid of one more home. We have children in that neighborhood. We have bicycles in that neighborhood. We have people that aren't used to driving like that and hurry for their lobbying meeting and pull up. We have people that are walking down there all the time that work at the Capitol. So it's a residence. It's not, and I know that Michael told me that I was wrong about the R3 being a residence still, but it's a residence, and we have many families with children and grandchildren that are there, myself included. So I just want to say that I think that the house should remain a residence. It should not have lobbyists who, as a former school psychologist, I worked with people that were sexually abused, even by professionals like lobbyists. We don't know how long they're going to be there, who comes in, who screens them, who says they're okay to work there, who says we can't have a big party in the neighborhood. So I have some real concerns that the city thinks that it's okay to just move ahead like this. I was hoping that Mayor Collins was here. I'd like to speak with him about that. I'm very sure that most people with families would agree that, do I want to have a family with a bunch of little kids or do I want some lobbyists here? I had written Michael earlier and I made the mistake, number one, of using the wrong street number, 103, and it's 102. But there's many reasons why this is not a good proposal, and I can speak longer if you'd like. But I'm very much opposed to it, and I think that you should be too. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Benish. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak?
Hi there, my name is Brittany Shirley and I reside at 102, or I'm sorry, 104 South Cook, the direct neighbor across the alley of 102 South Cook. I also represent my husband who is not able to be here this evening. To follow on what Jim said, we have little kids right next door. I was so excited. We loved Mike and Shirley who owned the home before. I was so excited for a new family to come in, possibly have kids to play in the yard. And I'm really bummed. That's the kindest word I can use to see that a possibility of a business coming in. People in and out, kids running across the alley, those don't mix. I also think that there are so few homes in Helena that are available for residences. It's really sad, especially in that area within such a great walking distance to Jefferson School, great parks, to lose another home to a business. Where they're really few and far between. I'm sure that I cruise Zillow all the time because I like to see what's out there, and there's hardly anything available in that area for kids or for families with kids that want to go to school at Jefferson or will be at Helena High. It's just not, there's not a lot in the area. Also, additionally, as the homeowner, I do think that I don't want to see my property value decrease because there's a business next door. So on a personal note, that would be a detriment to me. Also, the business that was mentioned at the end of Broadway is that it is an office building. It is very clearly an office building. It does not look like a home. It's not, doesn't have a nice backyard, doesn't have a deck to barbecue. This is very clearly a home. So I would like the commission to please take that into consideration. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to provide comment? April, is there anyone online?
So the only people we have online are from the city attorney's office.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, come on up.
My name is Kathleen Hamill. I live at 1308 Highland, which is just around the corner from this place. I guess first of all, I respectfully ask Ms. Wicks if she would consider backing off from this. We don't want it in our neighborhood, and I'm assuming any business would want to have the neighbors in favor of it, and we're not. I guess I'm disappointed in the city for not notifying everyone in the neighborhood. I don't think that, I mean, you've got the tax rolls and who's living in all these places. We got a letter, my next door neighbor didn't, and on down the street and across the street didn't. I think there would have been a lot more people here had people known this was going on. I don't understand why that didn't happen. And I guess I'm disappointed in the city and you folks, I guess, if you're wanting to approve this, that you're not supporting the zoning laws that have been in place for years and years. We trust that that's what you're here for. I guess we're wrong. Couple thoughts on this. There is going to be more traffic. The city had a thing in the paper probably a week ago, if less than that, about the museum and all the traffic that's expected to be generated from that they're even going to change to one-way streets. Now that's going to really impact Broadway, which is going to mean it's going to impact Cook Street for getting on and coming off. It's going to channel more traffic up to Highland. Highland is the street that most of the kids coming and going to Jefferson School use, and it is well used. Kids walking, kids on bikes. I think that's a huge consideration. Unfortunately, with the timing of this, we weren't notified in time to talk to, to anyone at the school about this, but that's a huge problem. They just put sidewalks in on both sides of Highland on the, would be the 1100 block, to channel the kids going down Highland, which is going to mean that your traffic or the traffic that is going to be channeled from that business is going to be going up to Highland. And I'm sorry, but kids are real important to me. And I think they're important to you too. And I really request that you folks consider not approving this. I guess that's all I have for right now. We're going to fight it, and we're going to fight it hard. It's our neighborhood. We've lived there for a long time and we love it, and we love it just the way it is. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Donna Shaw, and I live at 1311 East Broadway. And we are the first residents, private residents to the east of the property on Cook Street. We've been in the area for 9 years and love it. Frequently, we see people walking down Cook Street, kids riding bikes, people walking to their jobs at the Capitol. So there's a lot of foot traffic on Cook Street that goes onto the Capitol, and having a business there could potentially disrupt that. Also, we've owned our home for 9 years, and when we bought it, we knew what the zoning was and bought it with that intention. The house that is being discussed was just sold within, I don't know, 6 to 9 months. And so my question is, what were they thinking when they were buying that house as far as the zoning? And so it would change the whole, it could potentially change the whole atmosphere of the neighborhood, from residential with people on the streets to more business-like, and the community and the residents there do not want that. We have a lot of traffic across the street at the Capitol, and we're well aware of that, and we know that when we bought our homes. But to make something that's residential into a business is we don't like the idea. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Morris Hamill. I live at 1308 Highland. We have been in our home for 2 months shy of 43 years. And we vehemently deny any businesses in our residential neighborhood. We hate to see what's happened south of the Capitol happen to what's gone on north of the Capitol with all the homes that are businesses. It's just a residential neighborhood, and we want to keep it that way. There have been several other attempts at conditional use permits for our area, and they have all been denied. And request that this also be denied. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who wishes to comment this evening? double checking that it's still only city staff online. April.
So still city staff online.
Thank you. Last call, anyone in the room who'd like to comment? All right, I'm not seeing anybody jumping up for the microphone, so we will go ahead and close the public comment portion of this hearing. And again, that was the zone change hearing. And we'll move on to any final questions or considerations from the commission. I will say, for transparency, that I was contacted by the applicant's representative about this proposal, and I did provide guidance on the zoning process. And so I want to just put that out there so everyone's aware that I did have those conversations and provided that guidance as part of this process. I do have a question for staff while others are thinking. Michael, since we heard a comment about public notice, could you just inform us on what was done for public notice and why some folks may have received notice and others not?
Thank you, Chair Harbridge and commissioners. Yeah, so we have a standard operating practice with the zone change to send out neighbor notifications out to all the properties within 150 feet of the subject property. So that generally touches one or two properties surrounding. For certain properties where there isn't adjacency or there is a particularly big road or a gap in the neighborhood, we will extend out to 300 feet as appropriate. But in this instance, we went with the typical, since there are adjacent properties. And for the record, we simply rely on neighbors to talk to neighbors. That's actually just a big part of public notification.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments?
I guess I have a question about the zone change itself to R3. Can you just give some more examples of what other types of uses would be allowed in R3 that currently are not allowed in R2?
So the biggest change for R2 to R3 isn't so much in the features of the house or features of a building. It allows for only about 6 feet higher. It's only a 2-foot change in the setbacks. Otherwise, on the side setbacks, otherwise the setbacks are the same. The big change in most instances is that it allows residential multifamily. And a lot like this, I know I gave traffic figures for a 6-unit apartment building, but this would be typically built out if it were a vacant lot as a 4-plex. And this body has seen many CUPs for 4-plexes around the city on a similarly sized property, typically, west side, but that's the biggest one. Otherwise, it does also allow for, I think there's the new, some new designations like retail under 1,000 square foot is a new one that actually might just be R4 or RO. I'm sorry, I'm trying to go off the top of my head. And as the wildest, I think that's the wildest difference.
Further questions for staff or comments, discussion?
If there is a pretty big change in use, the building needs to be brought up to code essentially, right?
Thank you, Chair Harbridge and commissioners. Yes, I'll get into more detail with that. With the CUP application, it's going to be a condition that we recommend that the property be brought up to ADA standards. They're going to need to also probably do some work for fire in terms of egress routes or things like that, I'm not entirely sure about the interior layout of the building. It's still fairly early on. And then they'll need to install a sidewalk down South Cook Street along the frontage there, and which will require the driveway to also be up to ADA Pro Ag standards.
Follow-up question on that, since you mentioned the sidewalk, that is a condition on the CUP. Would that be triggered by the zone change or significant upgrades to the building itself?
Thank you, Chair Harbridge and the commissioners. No, the city cannot attach conditions to a zone change. The change in use is triggering for ADA and fire upgrades. We had an instance though of a similar lobbying office a few blocks away on the other side of Montana from the Capitol. They applied for a conditional use permit, got the permit, and then never got business licenses or business permitting. And so, you know, that conditional use permit is no longer valid, but the city now lacks a window into whether or not that space is being occupied in that fashion without a business permit. So we're conditioning it up front to make sure that we maintain eyes on it.
And then regarding concerns about traffic and parking in the neighborhood, can you remind us, you did have some information heavy slides. Can you just remind us what is the additional parking requirement for going from R2 to R3, and how would they be able to handle that off street versus on street?
Thank you, Harbridge and commissioners. Yeah, the parking requirement for a building that size is 5 spaces, and one of them would need to be ADA compliant. Currently, their driveway, it's a 2-car garage, and their driveway isn't level enough for ADA. So we're awaiting plans to see how they could accommodate that. But they have a curb cut. They also have alley access, although I'm sure transportation systems would prefer them to use their curb cut rather than the alley. That's a preference, though, not something we can necessarily really ask for.
So would they have to add off-street parking going from R2 to R3? Or not?
As part of a
Parking.
zone change? No. The parking would not factor into the zone change. As far as the zone change is considered, the use of the building hasn't changed with this. The use of the building, they're asking for a change with the CUP. Yeah.
Thank you. Any further questions? If there's nothing further to discuss, I would ask for a motion.
Michael, would you want to put your motion language back on the screen for the commission?
Thank you.
I would move to recommend approval on an ordinance amending City of Helena ordinance number 3097 and the official zoning map for the City of Helena that changes the zoning district from R2 residential to R3 residential for the property legally described as lots 18 through 20 and block 29 of the Corbin subdivision to the City of Helena, Lewis and Clark County, Montana.
I'll second.
Has been moved and seconded. Discussion on the motion.
I feel like we got a lot of public comment for the conditional use permit, but we're talking about zoning change right now. So that's what I don't really feel like I have much to say. Residential and residential, Often we like to see a buffer between these larger arteries and other business uses, and R3 is a good use for that.
I would agree with this, that this is just the zone change right now, and changing the zoning for this particular parcel doesn't come with any conditions about how that's used in the future. That will come with conditional use permits, which is item number 2 today, and in the future it could be additional items that are brought back before the zoning commission and the city commission. But this particular block already has R3 in it, and I would agree that it would serve as a good buffer between the R2 and the R3 and the other public land use designations immediately to the north associated with the Capitol, and the other business and commercial and, multiplex residential type uses that surround that area is more consistent with that. So I would agree with the city staff's recommendation that this particular lot appears to be an outlier between the R2 and the R3 surrounding it.
Thank you. Any further discussion of the motion? I would just add, I looked up the zoning map while we were talking, since we had questions about what is zoned R3 versus R2 in that neighborhood. And I know, Michael, you mentioned that on the west side of Montana Avenue, there is also R3. And it does appear that a large chunk of that very residential neighborhood on the west side of Montana all the way to, gosh, almost downtown, there's a lot of mix of R2 and R3 in that area. And I hear the concern that this is potentially going to change the character of the neighborhood. I appreciate that. I think that is important. I'm also a homeowner in Helena, and it is an important consideration when you buy a home, what you're getting into, and you believe that is what is going to remain there. But I did just want to reflect that there is R3 residential in that kind of south central area on the other side of Montana. And I guess as I drive through there, I don't consider that to be a much more dense or commercial zone, I guess, in feel. So I hope that with a zone change alone, this would not be changing the character of this particular block. Yeah. Any further discussion of the motion? All right. With that, it has been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion to recommend approval of the zone change portion is approved unanimously. Thank you. With that, we will move down to item number 2 on the agenda. And Michael, turn it back to you.
Chair Harp.
They have a mind
Do
of
you
their
have
own
your mic?
tonight.
Your mic is on. I will try to mitigate that.
Thank you, Chair Harbridge and Commissioners. Once again, I am Michael Alvarez and a planner with the Community Development Department. This item is associated with the
So just a moment, and we'll try to figure this out. So I don't think I can fix that mic. I think that's going to be something we have to call facilities about.
So once again, I am Michael Alvarez, a planner with the Community Development Department. This item, 102 South Cook Street, the conditional use permit for professional offices in R3 zoning district, is of course associated with the preceding zone change. It is for a property. It is specifically consideration of a resolution granting a conditional use permit to allow a professional office's use in an R3 residential zoning district for the property legally described as lots 18 to 20 in block 29 of the Corbin addition to the city of Helena, Lewis and Clark County, Montana. The property being located at 102 South Cook Street. This property is generally located on the southwest side of the intersection of East Broadway Street and South Cook Street. It has a land use currently of residence single dwelling unit. The existing property is a freestanding one-story residence built in 1962. The applicant and property owner seek a conditional use permit to allow a professional office use to operate at the property. The subject property's location is appealing to the applicant's work as a lobbyist due to its close proximity to the state capitol. Professional offices are defined in city code as facilities where customers may come to the property for the service, which may include, but is not limited to engineering, accounting, legal, architectural, real estate, and insurance. Services provided to businesses such as data processing centers, public relations, advertising, and customer service centers via telecommunications. And this includes trade offices such as electricians and plumbers. The R2 residential district provides for residential dwellings and limited non-residential development that protects and enhances the residential nature of the area. The R3 residential district provides for the development of a mixture of residential structures to serve varied housing needs and allows limited compatible non-residential uses. The future land use map designation for the area in the growth policy is public. And that is land that is government or quasi-government or of quasi-government use. The applicant has no plans for alterations to the building other than what is required to comply with the Americans with Disabilities Act and Fire Code. The city requests, which with a change in use in the dwelling, he will be required is required of the property. The city requires a condition that sidewalks be installed to city standards along the frontage of Cook Street. Parking access is off Cook Street and no proposed changes to landscaping, signs, or lighting, although where the sidewalk needs to go in, they will need to move or eliminate a tree. Here's a picture of the property looking west. That's from South Cook Street. The bottom picture is from East Broadway. That's looking south. In the vicinity, the state capitol is to the north across East Broadway Street. 103 South Cook Street is to the east across South Cook Street. And the last photo there at the bottom is 104 Cook Street. And this is at an angle looking northwest, so you can see down Highland and Cook Street. You see Mount Helena there and the Capitol complex to the south. Here's an aerial view. Jefferson School with Staburn Street on its western edge is on the left side of your photo. Cogswell Building with Sanders Street is on the right side of your building. Parking for the state capitol across the street to the north, and the neighborhood extending to the south and east, southeast and west. Here's a snippet again of the Corbin subdivision. Block 29 is down there again in the lower left-hand corner. In order to grant a conditional use permit, City Commission must determine that the application meets the standards outlined in City Code 1134A. To evaluate whether or not those standards have been met, the factors outlined in 1134B 1 through 12 are to be considered. And they are listed above. this is how your staff reports have been formatted. The proposed additional use will not require modifications to the site and structure beyond those ADA ProWag city standards in the sidewalk and to bring the building up to code. The 2019 growth policy designates the area as public, and the predominant use in the adjacent area with that public designation is professional office in the land use table. The estimated trips per day generated by a professional office use in this building are higher than expected from a residence single dwelling unit. The estimated trips per day, however, are below the amount requiring a traffic impact study. The estimated trips per day are not expected to have a significant impact on the adjacent right-of-ways. The subject property is required to have 5 parking spaces. And while it has off-street parking, on-street parking spots could accommodate all the zoning parking requirements per 1122-9. As for it being restricted parking, I did not get that as a comment from transportation systems. So we heard that in a comment with the zone change, and that is unfortunately something I can't comment on tonight. The subject property will need to create an ADA parking space to applicable standards. There is no increase in noise level to be expected. The business activities being inside the building and operating during normal business hours. No new exterior lighting is proposed, and odors are expected to be in line with a typical office use. I do want to talk a little bit about the public designation for the future land use map. While the lobbying work would not be considered a quasi-government use, as the future land use map indicates, that professional office use is the use type that a government office would work under. Since the city's land use table no longer distinguishes between public administrative offices uses and private professional office uses. You can see comments from the city. Transportation notes that the existing drive approach is not ADA compliant. Boulevard sidewalk insulation along the entire property frontage of Cook Street, including the drive approach replacement as per city code, should be required as a condition. Fire commented that a residential occupancy converting to an office building requires plans and permits submitted to the City of Helena Building Division for review in compliance with the 2021 International Fire Code and any associated standard prior to occupancy. Building Division said that residential dwelling changing to an office use may require modifications to comply with building requirements as a change of use. For instance, ADA would include new toilet or modifications to their toilet rooms, parking, the accessible routes into and through the buildings. And they would need to do a full plan review once one is submitted. Otherwise, addressing Public Works and Parks didn't have any comment, and the HCC replied no comment. And the HCC City Attorney's Office and HPD did not provide comment. The zoning commission meeting was legally noticed in the Helena Independent Record on June 29th. Neighbor notices were sent to property owners within 150 feet on July 1st. Notice signs was placed on Cook Street to the southwest of the intersection of East Broadway Street and South Cook Street, June 24th. And as of today, July 9th, 3 comments and opposition have been received. City staff recommends approval of a resolution granting a conditional use permit to allow professional offices use in the R3 zoning district for the property legally described as lots 18 to 20 and block 29 of the Corbin addition to the City of Helena, Lewis and Clark County, Montana, with the following conditions. 1, that a building permit must be obtained within 1 year, bringing the building into compliance with all applicable municipal, state, and federal requirements, and specifically the Americans with Disabilities Act. 2, that sidewalk, curb, and gutter be installed along Cook Street to city standards. and that all conditions are met within 2 years of CUP approval as per 1139 of the Helena City Code. And I will be happy to take your questions.
Are there questions for staff?
I have a couple questions. The sidewalk that's being put in, is that going to include like a boulevard buffer off the street, or is it just gonna be straight on the street? I don't know if you know this.
Thank you, Chair Harbridge and Commissioners. So the requirement there is for a boulevard. They would need to get a variance from City Commission if they wanted to do curbside, and they have not submitted for that variance.
My second question has to regard parking. Do you know, is there parking allowed on Broadway for that residence, adjacent to that residence?
Thank you, Chair Harbridge and Commissioners. So parking is allowed there, but there's also a sweeping curb and there's a sweeping curve there. It's not a desirable place to park. You rarely see cars parked in that curve because I think drivers generally think it dangerous to park there. So full disclosure for me, I live like a block from here. And so I'm pretty intimately familiar with that corner.
I have another question.
Yes.
Would the 5 parking spot requirement be met without the apparently restricted residential parking spots not included?
Thank you, Chair Harbridge and Commissioners. So that site should not have any difficulty accommodating 5 off-street parking spaces. However, we would need to see site plans to see how they're accommodating it. It's non-obvious how the current driveway configuration would accommodate 5 cars comfortably, but they can't keep that configuration just the way it is because it's not ADA compliant. So we're sort of awaiting to see how that they could accommodate the ADA spot really and build off of that.
Thank you.
Are there other questions for staff?
I guess going off of parking, you know, in theory, if this passes and they make the driveway ADA compliant and they can't put in, like there isn't enough spaces for 5 parking spots, I guess what happens in that scenario where there's less parking available than contemplated when we passed the conditional use permit?
Thank you, Chair Harbridge and Commissioners. The Zoning Commission could just require that all required spots be handled on site as a condition. If you seeking to avoid that conflict, but unfortunately I can't answer about the residential tag because Transportation Systems didn't get back to me on it.
And I've got another question about the professional offices designation. Does that have any limits as to how many individuals can be working in the office or how many specific offices there are? I guess what are the constraints on professional offices use in R3?
Thank you, Chair Harbridge and Commissioners. So the CUP would need to be modified if the building were to have additions put on it and significantly altered in size. So the footprint of that building and maintaining fire and up to code for fire building ADA is fairly limiting on the number of offices. I think they're correct in their assessment that they couldn't go above 3. And then, you know, it's basically because it's a like a 3-bedroom house.
I have another question. Sorry. My understanding is home use is allowed in R2 and R3. And the difference with the CUP is that there could be individuals who do not own the home also having an office there, and also that they would have folks coming to them for service. Is that the difference?
Thank you, Chair Harbridge and Commissioners. Yeah, so the this is different from a home occupancy, where a home occupancy, everybody working at the property has to live at the property. In this case, the owner of the property lives elsewhere in the city, currently has an office elsewhere in the city, commutes to the Capitol pretty frequently, is basically already parking in this area, and simply wants to move closer, move his office closer for convenience. He would not be living on site, nor would the other office occupants. And you can't do that under the original conversations about this site were that this was a good place to live and be a lobbyist. But he would need to be doing all of this to just operate it as an office.
I just want to confirm that when this goes to the building department, they'll look at the building and put some sort of occupancy limit on the building, correct?
Thank you, Chair Harbridge and Commissioners. I'm less familiar with how building handles those things. That, yeah, the certificate of occupancy comes with an occupancy load, though, is my understanding. But I don't do that kind of plans analysis. Sorry. And honestly, most of the board is a better expert at that than I am.
I have a couple of questions for you. So I understand following one of the questions that was previously asked, I understand that the CUP we're approving this evening, if we choose to do so, would be for the CUP would be for the entire building, correct? Not a portion of the building limited by square footage, like we've heard in the past, where someone wanted to say set aside 200 square feet in their property to have an office. This would be for the whole building, correct?
Thank you, Chair Harbridge and Commissioners. Yes, that's correct. This is for the entirety of the property.
And I understand that you said that if they were to make significant alterations, such as additions, whatnot, to the building, they would need to modify the CUP. The reason I ask is a large part of what we think about in zoning and character of neighborhood is kind of the physical form of the building. And we did hear in comment previously that this is a home, whereas the realtor's building is not a home, that's an office. So I'm playing devil's advocate. If they were to get the CUP, would they be able to tear down the home and build an office, for example?
Not without coming back before this board, no.
Okay. Thank you. And then another question related to the future land use map. That is a big rectangle of public designation around the Capitol. I'm just wondering how the city envisions moving toward a future land use of quasi-governmental or governmental in like a full block of what is mostly R2 currently, just south of Broadway. Would that be individual property owners coming forward for zone changes? Or does the city have a plan to, say, look into a larger zone change proposal for meeting that vision?
Yeah, so thank you, Chair Harbridge and Commissioners. So the city is currently reevaluating its growth policy. Well, we have just started the process of just finished hiring a consultant to come in. With that process, we are 100% going to get a new land use map, and we need to we have different requirements for how that is vetted with the community prior to adoption, sort of every step of the way with that. The Montana Land Use Planning Act was passed at the beginning of this year and really rewrote how we adopt growth policies and how we implement them. This, I guess all I could say is the new land use map will, upon adoption in a year or so, would need quite a bit of vetting with the community in this area would be included.
Thank you for that. My understanding is that that process would be much more front loaded than it is now. Is that where there'd be a lot of outreach and engagement with the community around the growth policy itself versus case by case down the road, trying to property by property make changes.
Yes.
Is that accurate? So folks who are here should know that that process is starting. And if you are interested in kind of the vision of neighborhoods in the future, you should watch the city's website.
We in fact have a website dedicated to the land use plan. So I do encourage you all to go check it out. It is linked on the city's webpage, multiple places. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to the community development department.
Michael, I have another question for you. It's my last one, I think, for now. You mentioned the potentials like safety concerns with people wanting to park along there because of the curve. But did we hear anything about safety concerns related to that intersection, Cook and Broadway, for like drivers or pedestrians? Was there anything brought up around that?
Thank you, Chair Harbridge and Commissioners. No, generally, the city's position is that the intersection will be made safer with this change, since we can force the sidewalks to be into the area. So foot traffic in through there doesn't get forced into the street.
Okay, thank you. Are there any further questions for staff? Thank you. At this point, we would ask the applicant's representative to please come forward if you would like. And again, please introduce yourself for the record.
Commissioner Harbridge and fellow commissioners, my name is Callie Wicks, KALIWICKS. Once again, I'm here on behalf of John Iverson, who sends his regrets. If you have any questions, I am available. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant? I guess, Callie, I have one, and that is just around the proposed business hours. In terms of when would you be expecting to have people working in that building, and then when would you expect to have people coming and going?
Sure. Thank you, Chair Harbridge. What I would envision would be your basic professional business hours from 9 to 5. To be perfectly honest, I don't necessarily know that there would be a lot of folks actually coming to the residence. I think most of us are looking for sort of a landing pad to get over to the Capitol, hop over, have lunch, do your work. Outside of session hours, potentially you would have people visiting between the hours of 9 to 5. But I don't necessarily think you're going to see too much outside of that. Certainly, if there's a nice day, you might have, people there a little bit longer than that, given it does have a lovely backyard. But that is pretty much what I would potentially envision. I did also want to clarify too, I think earlier during the parking discussion, we talked about the garage being a 2-car garage, but I think it's a 3-car garage. Is that correct? Okay, I think it might be a 3-car garage if I remember when I toured, which would potentially, if they redo the driveway, add 3 and 3 inside, 3 outside. So I did just want to bring that up if my memory serves me correct, and that could not be the case. So thank you.
One more,
Sure.
just in case you happen to know, since we can't get an answer tonight on the residential. Do you know if Cook Street has posting for residential parking only.
So, Chair Harbage, members of the commission, I don't recall seeing it posted. However, I did chat with Mr. Iverson about that possibility. And I think the discussion was that we would have potentially 5 permits for parking in that area. And each of us would potentially have one. And then if we did have a guest, we would have to give them a permit so they could park in that area. So I don't think we were envisioning anything outside of those residential spaces. Thank you.
Are there any further questions for the applicant? Okay. Look, there is a Google Maps street view photo for the cat. At this point, we will open the public portion of the hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to provide comment on the CUP, conditional use permit? And please state your name for the record.
Yes, I am Barbara Benish and I live at 1302 Highland Street, kitty corner from the property we're discussing. Just a couple quick things. I did see in Mr. Alvarez's presentation, because I was wondering how the heck you're going to get this done before the lobbying this year, get that sidewalk in, but I see you have 2 years. Is that correct to get that done? Or?
So it would be conditioned, so the way the conditions work, they would not be able to start using the building until they fulfill the conditions. So they would need to apply for a building permit and receive a building permit within 1 year and then complete the work within 2.
Okay, but they can go ahead and be a lobbyist office if they've applied, because they'll have that year allowance.
No, they would
Okay.
need to finish the upgrades before they can, and so part of that is that building, I'm sorry for the direct chatter. There are other federal requirements that also go along with that. They can't occupy that space until it's been made safe. So yeah, they can't occupy it until everything's done.
All right. And then the other one's just a question. We try to be community active, but with our independent record kind of more difficult to access. Even if we do it online, it's more difficult. But you mentioned with this new land use coming that there'll be lots of vetting of neighborhood folks and whatever. What is the process for this type of procedure? I see that the people who bought the property have had input. Mr. Alvarez made comment about the person who's purchased it. How is there a way that we would be informed before it came to an actual meeting such as this, where we could be on more initial stages?
As I understand your question, I think you're asking if someone is considering a land use change or a CUP, would the neighborhood be informed in that during the process? This is the process. So I don't believe that there would be anything prior to the required public notice. Right? You would post at the property when that's required, but not before that. And then you have zoning commission hearing, followed by public notice, followed by city commission hearing.
Per SB 382, the legislation that was passed in the 2023 legislature, which is prompted us to do the land use plan, this structure will change. And the public participation is going to be very front loaded. And that's why it is vital, if you do have any concerns, to become involved now while the land use plan is being written, because these boards, some of these boards will be going away. And a lot of decisions will be done administratively. There will be an appeals process that will go to our newly created planning commission. And this is all happening in the next 18 months. So if you are concerned, get involved now.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Come on up, please.
So I used to be on commissions here with the health department. I'd like you folks to picture your house having a rezoning done to it. And then remember that a majority of the people in this neighborhood that we're talking about are not trying to get the house rezoned. We want it to be a residence. We're tired of the years that I spent trying to get parking on Cook Street. I had lobbyists park right by our house, in front of our house, across the street. And if this new owner is not going to be present at this house, what do? Go tell them, well, you're not supposed to park there. We have Capitol Police that come and check decals on windshields. What I'm hearing is, oh, we can park in the front. It's going to be okay. It wasn't okay when we finally got the permits ourselves. We have to go in every year to get an upgrade. So I'm just wondering how you folks would feel if this was being done to your house. And I don't understand why you're not advocating for residence 2, not residence 3. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, commissioners, for giving me the opportunity to speak. My name is Greg Holtzman, Holzman, and I live at 1311 East Broadway, so just east of the area. My biggest concern, and why I'm getting up at this one and not, is I do think the parking is a major issue that needs to be figured out completely before it's rubber stamped. And it is, everybody thinks their area is unique, but I think our area is very unique in the sense of 3 months every 2 years. We have people parking in front of our mailbox. We've had people park in front of our driveway during legislative session and stuff like that. So I'm really hoping that this new business is very self-confined and that their parking is on their facilities. Using that alley would be directly affecting 103 and their ability to get in and out of there. We use the alleys into some of our garages. It doesn't affect my side because it's not on my side of the street, so it's not directly, but those are the concerns that is really figured out completely, because we do have a lot of problems for 3 months every 2 years. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Donna Shaw, SHULL. I live at 1311 East Broadway Street. On Cook, the section of Cook that we're talking about is not even a full city block. I would say it's about half a block across from this 103. It is permitted residents only. So there's very little parking along the west side of Cook Street. And as my husband mentioned during legislative session, it is a whole different world. The traffic along East Broadway is incredible. We, as he said, people park in front of our mailbox, people park in front of our driveway. And if there is a business in this place on South Cook Street, there will be even more traffic there, less parking, more overcrowding. And it is during, it's a group of lobbyists, which during the legislative session, they are very active. So we could anticipate even more traffic, parking problems during that session. And it is a real concern. And I'd like you to consider that because it is not a full city block. It is half a block. There's 2 houses on the section of Cook that we're talking about, and it is a small place to park. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi again, Brittany Shirley. I reside at 104 South Cook, and I understand this is probably an interesting area to try and picture if you're not there. So there's alleys and buildings and homes. The alley is that just that, it's a thoroughfare. It's not a driveway. It's people drive through that. There's no parking in that area. So just to second and third, all the concerns regarding parking, that is not an option. Also, during the session, parking is insane. It's absolutely a mess. People park in front of our yard, our driveway, multiple times during the legislative session. My husband has been unable to get to work because they've decided we don't need to leave our driveway. So that is a huge concern. I recognize that when I commented earlier, perhaps my comments should have been saved for this conditional use permit rather than the zoning. So I do apologize for the repetition that you're going to hear. But regarding the conditional use permit, I really oppose this on several levels. One, again, this is a residence. It is not an office building. It is a residence. It's got a beautiful backyard. There should be kids playing in it. It's in close proximity to a wonderful school. Additionally, if this conditional use permit is approved, I'm scared to think, okay, in 2 years, if they sell the building and they sell it to another business, that then we have one of the other business opportunities that were listed as part of the permit acceptances are the things that are accepted under this permit. A telecommunications company moving in next door. I feel like this is it's a slippery slope, and it could be opening a can of worms for this neighborhood. And I just ask you to please think about the neighbors that live here, the children, the parents, the dog walkers. This is the neighborhood. It's not an office building area. We recognize that we are across the street from the Capitol, yes. It was mentioned that the business owner commutes. We all commute. I get it. It's Helena. Our commute is pretty small. That's just part of living in Helena. This is why we chose where to live where we live. It wasn't to have an office building next door. It was to have a great school, safe streets for my children to ride their bikes on. I really ask you to think about this being right next door, because I'm right next door. The alley separates us. I really, really oppose this, and I ask that you do too.
Thank you. Are there further comments on the CUP?
I guess I am really disappointed that you folks have not considered the kids at Jefferson School. There are so many kids that go down Highland, which is just the one house up from this residence. I really am disappointed. I think you people really should postpone this until you have a chance to see what happens when school's out or when people are going to school. It's really scary. Kids are kids, and they aren't always mindful of what's safe and what isn't. Coming home from school, it really is dangerous. And I just really am concerned about that. I think you folks should, really take the opportunity to see what happens when school starts and see just what a dangerous situation it is. And I guess I am really concerned, as you mentioned, what happens if somebody decides to take this building, knock it down, and put up a real business type building. I can't say I have a lot of confidence in you backing us up. I think we were blindsided with all of this. We had no idea. Obviously, you have dealt with the people that want to put this office in there. Residents that are going to be affected have had no forewarning at all to have any input. And, I guess we just don't have a lot of confidence in you backing us up. I considered your job to protect our zoning. And I guess I feel you guys haven't done your job. And I'm pretty disappointed in that, and disappointed in, what can happen in the future. Please consider turning this down. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there further comments on the CUP?
Good
Welcome
evening
back.
again. I'm Morris Hamill. I live at 1308 Highland. I guess the one thing I would comment on with the conditional use is that apparently the guy who wants to buy the place or has bought it is doing it for convenience, so he doesn't have to commute to the Capitol. As Mike said, when they were talking about how many could be in there, he made the comment, it's a 3-bedroom home, and it is a home. And we're very much against any businesses in the neighborhood. So please consider that. Thank you.
Thank you. April, is there anyone online?
We still only have city staff online.
Thank you. Last call. Anyone want a second bite at the CUP? All right, we'll close the public portion of the hearing and we will move on to final questions or considerations from the commission.
I did want to share with the rest of the commissioners that Broadway is no parking. I'd like to share with the rest of the commission that Broadway is no parking in that, on that other side of that lot. And that indeed the residential parking zone does start in the front. I'm not sure Michael can answer questions regarding the, what is a resident? For getting residential permitting? Nope. Okay, just want to check. Thank you.
Any further questions, considerations?
I guess going off of that, I don't know if you can answer this, Michael, but will they have a certain number of decal permits they will get for parking, or is that unknown?
Michael, you'll need to use the standing microphone.
Thank you, Chair Harbridge and Commissioners. That is unknown.
I have another parking question. I'm so sorry. For parking requirements, whatever the number is, that is regardless of stacking. So it's not 3 in, it's like you can do the 3 in and the 3 out. It's all added up. Is that correct?
I think you could
We-
park people in.
Thank you, Chair Harbridge and Commissioners. So we have for on-site parking, we have parking lot standards that they would need to meet and show us where all the cars are going to go. To meet their standard of parking, you would tally however many spaces are available on street as well as off street to meet their requirement. It's an off street parking requirement, but there are carve outs in section 1122(9) that allow you to use street frontage parking every 20 linear feet of legal space. And if a space is interrupted, the way that we count, for instance, even though it's only a portion of a space, you could count any amount of footage as it runs off your property. Doesn't make sense on its face, but it's a parking spot accounting practice that is common in the field.
April, I see you.
So just to answer the question about the residential parking permits, that is on the Parking Commission's website, on their webpage on the website. And according to that, if you live in assigned residential parking district, you have to bring your ID, vehicle registration, and a bill or rental agreement in your name with the address in that residential parking district to the parking office. And you can get up to 2 permits per household and additional 2 guest passes. And they have to be renewed every year. So that is how the residential parking permits work.
The property owner, regardless of whether they
So a
actually
bill
reside
or
here?
rental, so bill or rental agreement in that person's name. So you could only get a permit if your name is attached to that property in some way, whether through a lease or like a utility bill.
And to clarify, the car needs to be registered at that property? I'm sorry.
Yeah, that is what I would assume if you have to take your vehicle registration there as well. But for clarification, it would probably be best to speak to the parking commission.
And just to clarify, how will this be resolved before the city commission hearing?
So, Chair Harbridge and commissioners, in light of the parking requirement on the street, I would ask that you apply a condition that their off-street parking requirement be met on their property.
Further questions, considerations, discussion?
Sorry, Chair Harbridge.
Yeah. Go ahead.
At your request, I can also write something up.
That would be very helpful. Thank you. All right. I think, I guess while we're looking at the proposed language in front of us, since we have 3 members of the zoning commission, just to avoid any appearance of any bias, I'm going to recuse myself from the vote because I have had conversations with the applicant's representative. I don't have any financial interest in this, and I don't have any opinions, one way or the other that are biasing me, but I just don't want it to appear otherwise. So we have enough zoning commissioners today to make a vote without me. With that said, is there a motion?
I'll move to recommend approval of a resolution granting a conditional use permit to allow professional offices uses in an R3 zoning district for the property legally described as lots 18 to 20 in block 29 of the Corbin addition to the city of Helena, Lewis and Clark County, Montana, with the following conditions. 1, a building permit must be obtained within 1 year, bringing the building into compliance with all applicable municipal, state, and federal requirements, and specifically the Americans with Disabilities Act. 2, that sidewalk, curb, and gutter be installed along Cook Street to city standards. 3, that all off-street parking requirements be met on site. And 4, that all conditions are met within 2 years of CUP approval as per 11-3-9 of Helena City Code.
Make a second on that.
Has been moved and seconded. Is there a discussion of the motion?
I guess I can start. So with this extra condition, number 3, about off-street parking requirements being met on site, I think this will mitigate a lot of the concerns that we received in public comment about parking. It sounds like the parking situation is terrible now, but based on what we've heard at the hearing today, it doesn't appear that approval of the conditional use permit is going to make the parking situation worse or better, because they will be limited by the square footage of that house and fire code and their conditional use permit with individuals that are there. And the parking is further limited by the permits that are required and is enforced by Capitol Police, which is not necessarily the case across town or in the other areas of town that are R3 and R2 in the capital area that experience additional overflow from associated with the legislative session. For full disclosure, I actually lived on the 1100 block of Highland Street. And after that, I lived at 1011 East Broadway. So I spent quite a bit of time in this neighborhood, and I believe that this is still consistent. It will still appear as a house. The use is just a 9 to 5 professional office use within a house, limited within this conditional use permit. And as we've discussed earlier, any change to the structure will require the applicant to come back before the board or subsequent owners to do that. So this conditional use permit, I think, is sufficiently confined to constrain the property to maintain its historical appearance, and use is not that inconsistent with how it was before, which from what it appears was very nice neighbors in a nice neighborhood. But even without the conditional use permit, you can't necessarily control what kind of residents or tenants are going to be living in that house. And I think we've just had the benefit of very good owners and residents in the past, but that may not always be the case just because it's R2.
I'll add, I do wish this residence being used in this way was oriented towards Broadway. However, it is adjacent, directly adjacent, and I don't think the safety improvements of the sidewalk and curb and gutter in this location for walkers, bikers, et cetera, has been really discussed much. I think a lot of the challenges in this area are due to it being directly adjacent to the state capitol building. I do feel for the neighbors. I understand the desire to keep your residential feel. We're not changing the zoning from residential to a different total use, but I think this conditional use permit is based on zoning practices. I think it does make sense for this area.
All right. If there is no further discussion of the motion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? All right. It has passed with a vote of 3. And I would like to note for everyone who did comment tonight, this is not the end. As I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting tonight, this will be a recommendation made to the City Commission of Helena. And I don't have the date of that hearing in front of me. Michael, do you happen to know when this will be before the City Commission? August 12th. Okay, there you go.
Michael, could you use the standing mic?
Thank you, Chair Harbridge and Commissioners. So the CUP will actually be heard September 9th. First passage of the zone change will be heard August 12th. And then this will be heard again on final passage. Even if they miraculously built in 30 days, by the way, it wouldn't go into, they couldn't receive the CUP until 30 days after the zone change went into effect. So not until October 9th upon City Commission approval.
Thank you. With that, April, can we get the agenda back up, please?
Just a moment.
Thank you all very much for coming out tonight. And thank you for your comments. I appreciate you being here and spending the time and educating us on this neighborhood. And it sounds like you've put a lot of work into it. Thank you. Thank you, April. That closes our public hearings for the evening. At this point, we will move down the agenda to general public comment. If anyone is present who wishes to provide comment on any items that may be under the purview of the zoning commission, you are absolutely welcome to do so now. Yes, please come on up and state your name for the record.
Just imagine lobbyists coming or people representing lobbyists coming who don't know the neighborhood. Before we got the residents put in, we had them all up and down our street, misparking, blocking the driveways. How do you know as a parent that that lobbyist is not a felon or a child abuser? And they're only going to be there for a week because they're a part-time lobbyist? It's a little different than having a residential zone that allows an office there with permanent people. The owner isn't even available to live there. And so I just want you to imagine that. And like I said, I worked with hundreds of kids that have had problems from people that just drove by, saw them. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other general public comment on any item that might be under the purview of the zoning commission? Is there anybody online?
We only have city staff online.
Thank you. All right, we will close the public comment. Move on down the agenda, member communications or proposals for the next agenda. There's nothing listed.
So I am unsure if we're gonna have anything for the August meeting. I've been out of the office for like the past 5.5 days, so my brain's still catching up. But if there is anything, we will let you know as soon as possible.
Okay. So yeah, it looks like the next meeting is scheduled for August 13th. And I will not be available
Okay.
on
Well,
that day.
well, if we do have a meeting, hopefully Kim will be available. So we have at least a vice chair.
Mhm.
Could you guys remind me again when the sign? ordinance
So
is on?
I believe that's going July 15th. So next Monday.
All right. Anything else for tonight? Thank you all. We have come to the end of the agenda and we are adjourned. Have a good evening.